So we read from Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 13, verse 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudevaya. Thank you, Prabhu. Oh, thank you. Chapter 15. Sarvendriya. Sarvendriya. Guna Bhasam. Sarvendriya Guna Bhasam. Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. Asaktam Sarvabrich Chaivam. Asaktam Sarvabrich Chaivam. Chaivam Nirgunam Guna Bhaktri Cham. Nirguna Guna Bhaktri Cham. You have a book right here. Savendriya Guna Bhasam. Thirteen, 15. Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. Vivarjitam. Asaktam Sarvabrichaivam. Chaivam Nirgunam Guna Bhakticham. Again. Sarvendriya Guna Bhasam. Guna Bhasam. Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. Vivarjitam. Nirgun Asaktam Sarvabrichaivam. Sarvabrichaiva Nirgunam Guna Bhakticham. Sarvendriya Guna Bhasam. Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. Vivarjitam. Asaktam Sarvabrichaivam. Sarvabrichaivam Nirguna Guna Bhakticham. Guna Guna Bhakticham. Sarvendriya Guna Bhasam. Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. Asaktam Sarvabrichaivam Nirguna Guna Bhakticham. Sarvendriya Guna Bhasam. Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. Asaktam Sarvabrichaivam Nirgunam Guna Bhakticham. Sarvendriya Guna Bhasam. Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. Asaktam Sarvabrichaivam Nirgunam Guna Bhakticham. Sarvendriyam Sarva of all Indriyam senses. Gunam of the qualities. Abhasam the original source. Sarvam all. Indriyam senses. Vivarjitam being without.
asaktam, without attachment, sarvabrit, the maintainer of everyone, cha, also, eva, certainly, nirgunam, without material qualities, guna bhaktri, master of the gunas, cha, also. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Super Soul is the original source of all senses, yet He is without senses. He is unattached, although He is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, He is the master of all the modes of material nature. We can repeat all together. The Super Soul is the original source of all senses. Yet, He is without senses. He is unattached, although He is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time He is the master of all the modes of material nature. The purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Lord, although the source of all the senses of the living entities, doesn't have material senses like they have. Actually, the individual souls have spiritual senses, but in conditioned life they are covered with the material elements, and therefore the sense activities are exhibited through matter. The Supreme Lord's senses are not so covered. His senses are transcendental and are therefore called nirguna. Guna means the material modes, but His senses are without material covering. It should be understood that His senses are not exactly like ours. Although He is the source of all our sensory activities, He has His transcendental senses, which are uncontaminated. This is very nicely explained in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, in the verse, Apanipado Javano Grahita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no hands, which are materially contaminated. But He has His hands and accepts whatever sacrifice is offered to Him. That is the distinction between the conditioned soul and the super soul. He has no material eyes, but He has eyes. Otherwise, how could He see? He sees everything, past, present, and future. He lives within the heart of the living being, and He knows what we have done in the past, what we are doing now, and what is awaiting us in the future. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad-Gita. He knows everything, but no one knows Him. It is said that the Supreme Lord has no legs like us, but He can travel throughout space because He has spiritual legs. In other words, the Lord is not impersonal. He has His eyes, legs, hands, and everything else. And because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, we also have these things. But His hands, legs, eyes, and senses are not contaminated by material nature. Bhagavad-Gita also confirms that when the Lord appears, He appears as he is by his internal potency. He is not contaminated by the material energy, because he is the Lord of material energy. In the Vedic literature, we find that his whole embodiment is spiritual. He has his eternal form called Satchit Ananda Vigraha. He is full of all opulence. He is a proprietor of all wealth and the owner of all energy. He is the most intelligent and is full of knowledge. These are some of the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the maintainer of all living entities and the witness of all activities. As far as we can understand from Vedic literature, the Supreme Lord is always transcendental. Although we do not see his head, face, hands, or legs, he has them. And when we are elevated to the transcendental situation, we can see the Lord's form. Due to materially contaminated senses, we cannot see his form. Therefore, the impersonalists who are still materially affected cannot understand the personality of Godhead. So I read the verse again. Savendriya guna bhasham, savendriya vivajitam, asaktam savabrichaiva, nirgunam guna bhuktricham. The Super Soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. Om Ganati Mirandasya Gyananjala Sharakaya Saksurum Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Vansakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I thank you very much to come to help me to try to speak something on the Bhagavad-Gita. I like to share with you, first of all, one or two letters from Srila Prabhupada about sharing the philosophy and the nectar of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to read. So there is a letter of Srila Prabhupada to Dayananda in July 1968. So Prabhupada is writing to Dayananda, always read and talk about Krishna between yourselves. He's telling his disciple, always read and talk about Krishna between yourselves. And always remember that this life is but a flash only. You understood? This life is only a flash. So always speak about Krishna. We have to seek after our eternal life, not a flash, our eternal life in Krishna consciousness, and be transferred to the spiritual world in the association of Krishna. It is a very beautiful letter that we have to always remember that this life is only a flash, and we should take every opportunity, every moment to read and talk about Krishna, so that by doing that we are seeking after our eternal life, which is not a flash, which is eternal. It is very nice. And like this, we will be transferred to the spiritual world. I hope so. Now it's a question of faith. Then another letter of Srila Prabhupada, very nice, written to Bhavananda in 60, I don't remember. Is is saying to Bhavananda, I like very much your winter program. I'm looking for where it is. Somewhere here. Where is it? Your winter program is very nice to discuss, because Bhavananda Prabhu, he was in Mayapur, in charge of Mayapur, and in winter he organized the devotee to meet together to discuss about Krishna consciousness and of different angle of vision. And Prabhupada was very happy about that. He said, this is very potent to meet together and discuss. By doing that, we can be very Krishna conscious. Very important to share and to discuss among each other. So I hope you will help me. We'll try to discuss. So first of all, I'm very lucky because Srila Prabhupada gave lecture on this particular verse in Bombay. And there is I made a study of this lecture, very complete lecture. Prabhupada explained that apparently Krishna speaking that he has at the same time is the original source of all senses, and yet he is without senses. And he says that he is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. In this world, somebody who is the maintainer, suppose the father is the maintainer of his children, for example, he's very attached to his children. That's why he's maintaining them. So generally the maintainer in this world is somebody who is attached, otherwise he would not maintain, materially speaking, isn't it? But Krishna is maintaining all of us, but he's not attached. He's attached differently. They would like us to become devotees. This is different. But it is different. It is very interesting. And then Krishna says he transcends the mode of nature, and at the same time he is the master of all the modes of nature. So he is transcendental to the mode of nature, and at the same time he is the origin of the modes of nature, the master. So I was thinking that actually what is the most important instruction of Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita? So I ask you a question. What do you think? The most important instruction that Krishna is asking us in the Bhagavad-Gita? Surrendering, yes. Prabhu? Yes, surrendering. Manmana, I was thinking about this one. It's okay. We'll not make a... I was thinking about this one. Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto. Please think of me. Huh? So actually there is another beautiful letter. Srila Prabhupada is telling his disciple that you may have many trouble in the temple between devotees. Everybody has this experience. But actually this is not very important. What is very important is that we should always remember to think about Krishna. This is very important. Because Maya is expert to distract our meditation on the lotus feet of Krishna. She is expert to take the mind from what is important to what is not important. So that's why we should be strong in our reading of Bhagavad-Gita and our sharing Krishna consciousness, so that we always remember the importance of remembering. I should remember the lotus feet of Krishna. This is most important. And how can we remember Krishna? We need to know about him. We need to hear about him. Is it correct? We need to have some idea about who is Krishna, isn't it? Otherwise, it's very difficult. So that's why Krishna described himself in the Bhagavad-Gita. And I was finding interesting to go through the Bhagavad-Gita, and where is Krishna describing himself? Not everywhere. Some chapter practically doesn't speak about himself, but many places he speaks about himself. So I discovered that in the second chapter, Krishna practically doesn't speak about himself much. He speaks about more how to become a devotee, the process. And then in the third chapter, he says one verse, Name partasti kartavyam Trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavyam bhaltaiva chakarmani. He says that there is nothing I need to do in this three world. I don't need anything. The problem is I have to translate it in English because I know it in French language. Sorry. So he says something like that. He gives some idea. And then in the 4th chapter, Krishna will start speaking a lot about himself. Remember that Arjuna is asking to Krishna, how can you explain to me that you teach this Bhagavad-Gita to the sun god millions of years ago? And the sun god is much elder than you. So how does it make sense? He's asking this question. And actually the question of Arjuna is for Krishna to speak about himself. And remember what Krishna says, Bahunin me vyatitani janmani tamacharjuna. Tani venasarvani natvam veda parantapa. Something like that. He says, I remember we have been together, so many incarnations, we have been friends together, you and me. And I remember all of them. And you have forgotten all of them. And then Krishna starts speaking about himself. Ajobisyam avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropisam. He says, I am unborn, ajopisam avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropisam. And although I am the master of all the living entity, Prakritim svama bhashtabhya sambhavami atmamayaya. I come in this world sambhavami atmamayaya by my own internal power. He is not coming like an ordinary living entity. He is coming by his internal potency. It is not ordinary. So he goes on describing himself like that. So we start having kind of a lot of ideas about who is this extraordinary personality of Krishna, very wonderful personality of Krishna. And then there is chapter 5, there is only the last verse of chapter 5 where Krishna says, Bhaktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshvaram suridam savabhutanam gyadvamam shantim rechati. So somebody who knows me as the Bhaktaram, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, and the master, and Sarvaloka Maheshvaram, the supreme master of all planets, and Suridam Savabhutanam, the friend, the best friend of all living entity. This one, he can be peaceful. If you understand this, then you can have peace. I was explaining that the demon Hiranyakashipu, they have this verse all reverse. they have it all opposite. they are against all this statement of Krishna. They don't want to accept Krishna as the best friend. They accept Krishna as the best enemy, and they don't want to accept Krishna as the proprietor, and they don't want also that Krishna is an enjoyer. They are all against these things. That's why this demoniac mentality is the cause of all trouble and all disturbance. And then chapter 6, Krishna doesn't speak so much about himself, but a little bit when he says that Yomam pashyati sarvatra savam cha mai pashyati tasyamna pranashami satchamena pranashyati. He says, somebody who sees everything in me and me in everything. How is it the verse? Yomam pashyati sarvatra savam cha mai. He is never separated from me, and he is never lost to me. I never lost to him. We are always together. So that means he's telling his devotees, try to see that everything is in me, and try to see me in everything. The advanced devotee is saying like that. So then, chapter 7, there is this famous verse, Rasoam apsu kaunteya prabhismi sashi surayo. Krishna says, I am the the taste of water. I am the light of the sun and the moon. Pranava sarva vedeshu, shabdake paurusham deshu. I am the sound in ether, and I am ability in man. Actually, I realize that people are very fascinated if somebody has developed any kind of ability. He may be a street artist, or he may be a musician, or anything. It is very attractive. Because why? Because it is Krishna, and it requires Krishna's intervention. So everybody is attracted. It is fascinating because Krishna is there present. So anyway, there is many more places in Bhagavad-Gita where Krishna describes himself in so many ways, so that it becomes more tangible for us to remember him, to think about him, and to want to serve him, and to become a devotee of Krishna. We understand he is the Supreme. He is very, very special. He is the Supreme Master. So I was hearing another lecture. Prabhupada was saying that actually consciousness originally means Krishna consciousness. Just like light means sunlight. Why we say sunlight? Because there is no question of light without sun. The same way, there is no question of consciousness without Krishna. So actually consciousness means there is Krishna. So somebody who is really conscious, that means he is Krishna conscious. So this was a little reflection I was having. And so now we are reading from the 13th chapter, which is the third section. Bhagavad-Gita is divided in 3 parts. There is, in the middle of Bhagavad-Gita, there is the heart of Bhagavad-Gita that is about bhakti, about pure devotion. And actually the chapter 12, just before this chapter, is completely into that, describing the very exalted position of the pure devotee. There is 20 verses only, the short chapter. And now we enter the 13th chapter, which is actually jnana. It is all the chapter starting from 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, is a jnana approach of Krishna consciousness. And the 1st chapter, in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, is the karma yoga. This approach where you are not yet at the point of bhakti. You are understanding that you have to do your duty to please Krishna, but yet you are not in love with Krishna yet. So which is devotion to Krishna. And so it is explained that the treasure of Bhagavad Gita is in the middle, especially in the end of the 9th chapter. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. This verse is considered really the most special verse, although also this verse you were mentioning is also very special, to surrender sarva dharma and charitaji. And then the last part of Bhagavad Gita, this particular chapter, I confess I have little hard time with this chapter. I find it very abstract, very difficult to get my intelligence into that. I have to read. I read it so many times, and still it doesn't really. I have difficulty to understand because everybody has a different mind and a different approach of Krishna consciousness according to his own conditioning. So some people are very happy to read this 13th chapter, and some people are a little bit less attracted. It is normal. So here there is Krishna is describing what is called the knowable, because it is Arjuna in the beginning of this chapter is asking about the field and the knower of the field, and knowledge, and the knowable, different aspects of knowledge. So now Krishna is describing what is the knowable, and we come to understand actually the knowable is Krishna. It's Krishna himself. It is the spiritual energy. It is Brahman. He make a description of Paramatma in these verses practically. It is understanding. And so Srila Prabhupada gave the class on this particular verse, and he says, because people cannot see Krishna, cannot see the form of Krishna, they conclude that Krishna is Nirakar. Nirakar is the philosophy of Mayavadi. They think that Krishna has no form, no eyes, no legs. This is the Mayavadi philosophy. And Prabhupada says this is rascal philosophy. Just because you are you are not able I'm trying to repeat what Prabhupada says. I have no position to so Prabhupada is a rascal philosophy because just because you are not able to see the soul and you're not able to see Krishna doesn't mean they are nirakar. They are akar also. But this akar you cannot see with these blunt senses. And Srila Prabhupada quotes this famous verse, Atak Shri Krishna Namadi, Na Bhavet Gram Indriya Sevanmukhe Hi Jivado Svayameva Spuratyada. That with our materially contaminated senses, blunt senses, there is no question of seeing the spirit. Even the soul cannot be seen. You may look at each other, you cannot see the soul. I cannot see the soul. When I look at you, I see only your shape of made of matter. I cannot see the soul. So Prabhupada says, even the soul we cannot see. So what to speak of Krishna? We cannot see Krishna. And Prabhupada says there is a qualification, like he make a comparison that to see something very small you use a microscope. So you are using some device, technology, so that your eyes is able to see something that is not possible to see. The same way, this process of Krishna consciousness is a kind of transcendental microscope or telescope, I don't know. It's a transcendental device so that you will be able to see what you are unable to see normally with your blunt senses. And Srila Prabhupada explained this process is bhakti. You have to, oh, thank you. You have to learn to become a devotee. Actually, there is a verse in this 13th chapter where Krishna says, all this knowledge that I am speaking to you, although it is jnana, it is a very much jnana approach, still you have to be a devotee to understand it. Only devotee can understand it, actually. The Mayavadi, who are considering themselves so much learned, they consider themselves so much qualified pandit, but actually they don't understand this philosophy. The devotee can understand. And so why? Because to understand, you have to be a devotee. So Krishna gives a very beautiful example. If you offer food to Krishna, I remember very well when I discovered Krishna consciousness many years ago. Excuse me, I'm a very neophyte devotee, although I'm so many years Hare Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna. But so many years I'm chanting, but still I'm very neophyte, so I'm sorry for that. But I remember I was fascinated by one thing, how to offer food. I was very attracted by this process. I was very interested, fascinated. So I was not yet in the temple, I was still living outside the temple. And I have a little booklet that was explaining very nicely how to offer the food to Krishna. So there was the mantra, complete mantra, Namo Mahavadanyaya, also mantra, and Namo Brahmanya Devaya. So I was extremely serious to offer my food. I was vegetarian. So I put a picture of Krishna and I recited this. And I had something like very special. I have a wow! I was so exciting. Actually, I could feel that the food is accepted by Krishna. I could feel. I was sure. So this is what Prabhupada says, that if you offer yourself to this process, you will be convinced about it. If in all sincerity you try to offer your food to Krishna, you will be convinced that the food has been accepted by Krishna. You will know it. Prakshakhyavagamam dharmyam. Krishna says in second verse of 9th chapter, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Prakshakhyavagamam dharma. It is directly you can perceive the truth about it by doing it. So Prabhupada explained, in order to understand this knowledge, you have to do it yourself. Then you can understand. It is very important. And what else Prabhupada was saying? Yes, he was saying that because Krishna is the origin of everything, there is a famous aphorism, Janmadi Asya Yatha. That means Krishna is the source of everything. So how is it possible that Krishna being the source of everything, and so many varieties of senses, so many varieties of bodies and colors and taste and so many different extraordinary variety, how is it possible that he has no variety? He has no senses, he has no taste, he has no color. How is it possible? It is very illogical. So I will read, because it's already 6:25, I will read another letter, very nice letter of Srila Prabhupada to his disciple. That is very amazing. So this is a letter to Vyasa, one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, written in Los Angeles in August 1917. Anyone can understand that behind the beauty of nature, behind the succulent fruits and vegetables, and behind the wonderful heat and light, now it's a little too much heat and light, but in winter it's very pleasing, the heat and light of the sun. There is a friend, Prabhupada said. Anyone can understand that there is a friend. Behind the beauty of nature, behind the delicious taste of the fruit, behind the heat and light of the sun, there is a friend, Krishna. Prabhupada says, any reasonable man will accept this argument. That is rational thinking. Isn't it nice? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. So if you have a comment, we can discuss, we can share. Prabhu, yes, please. Yeah, there is a mic. Please give a mic to Prabhu.
Just like in the verse, it says he is a maintainer of everyone.
Yes.
He is maintaining everyone.
Yes.
So we should understand that Lord is maintaining everyone. That nobody is independent or anything he can do upon his own desire. All the desires and whatever it comes from Krishna.
Yes.
So if I have a desire to serve Krishna, that is Krishna is giving me desire to serve him.
Okay.
And if the materialist he doesn't have desire to serve Krishna, he has to just serve his wife, family, children. He is observing those things, and Krishna gives him that okay, you do whatever you are interested.
Yes.
So this is the thing we should understand. Sometimes we discriminate and we say this person is not coming to Krishna consciousness or this thing. Even in our family, we see that they are not come to family. Just like Prabhupada's family also, you see his wife for the tea, she sold Prabhupada's Bhagavatam. So everybody's destiny is different, and whatever they want, Lord is giving them. He is maintaining them.
I see.
He doesn't say that I will not maintain you because you sold Bhagavatam. I will not maintain you.
No.
Still, she sold the Bhagavatam, and still she was maintaining. Prabhupada said whether you want tea or me. Then she said she want tea. That was the plan of the Lord. That how you should be separate from your family, and you should propagate the holy name of the Lord. So this everything is maintained by the Lord.
Yes.
So this verse, I understand this verse is regarding this one, that how he is maintaining everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Correct.
Hare Krishna. Any other comment or discussion? Mataji, yes, please.
Only devotees can understand. We have a personal experience with one of my family members. He's a scientist.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and very educated, PhD. And he said, I want to read this Bhagavad-Gita and find out what you guys are doing. And then, so he read it the first time.
Yeah.
And he came back and he went to my husband and he said, I don't understand. This book is very difficult.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I don't understand at all. So then my husband said to him, just theoretically accept Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. Just pretend he's the God, he's Supreme God. And then read it again.
Ah, yeah.
Okay. And then he said, okay, he'll try. So the second time he read Bhagavad-Gita,
Oh, yeah.
he came back and he said, you know, you were right. It makes so much sense.
Oh, yes.
Now I understand.
Wow.
And so now he's chanting a little bit.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he's becoming slowly Krishna conscious. So we're trying to cultivate him.
Fantastic.
But because he was, he couldn't say and
Wonderful.
accepted Krishna,
Jai.
the purified one.
Very inspiring. Thank you, Mataji. Very inspiring. Very nice. It's okay. Any comment?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for letters, especially. What I understand from this verse is Lord Krishna said in Gita, Ye Thamavavadante. The way you approach me, the same way I reciprocate.
Yes.
If you want something material from me, I will give you. If you want to ask me, I will come to you. Understand?
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. No more question. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavad-Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.